drugs, Suboxone, I believe it is what she is said that she was on, and that was, she clarified that that's legal.
Yeah, that little scene that we saw, I just want to mention, happened outside the presence of the jury. Would not have looked good if it happened in front of the jury, but it did. The jury had already left the courtroom. Now, before the trial even started, Joy, there were some motions about a change of venue. Why was the defense seeking a change of venue for this trial?
Yeah, I mean, a fairly small community where all of this has unfolded, and you see so many individuals that are tied to the community coming to the stand to testify. So the defense felt that it was impossible to find an unbiased jury in Morgan County where the crime actually occurred. But ultimately, that is where this trial is being held. The prosecution was successful in keeping it in Morgan County, West Virginia.
All right. And quickly, Joy, what can we expect tomorrow?
Yeah, so we expect to hear testimony from an officer whose cadaver dog detected human remains on the bed of that green Dodge truck that we've been hearing so much about, which the defendant was allegedly driving and used to basically transport the victim's body, according to the prosecution, on the day in question, Michael.
All right, Geraldine Nakrin, I want to thank you so much for that report. Truly appreciate it. I'll let you go. And I'll bring in my guest for this hour, criminal defense attorney Silva Megerditchian. Silva, great to see you again.
Pleasure, Michael. I love being on. Thank you so much for having me on again.
All right, and we love having you on the show. Now, this is a case that charges first-degree murder, malice, premeditation, but they don't have any motive. They don't have any real, at least as we know so far, any strong forensics. We've already heard testimony that nothing in what they believe is the crime scene, the victim's bedroom, they don't have any DNA or anything that ties the defendant to that room. Do you think, I want to get your thoughts on the case in general.
You know, Michael, I was listening to this case while I was going to court and even after, and I think your viewers that also have watched this trial probably have the same feeling that I have, which is kind of this uneasiness and kind of, you feel a little bit sick. I mean, honestly, you see the way that this 15-year-old girl was living. She was living with a drug user that's very obvious. She was living in circumstances that made her fearful. I feel like that punch of that little girl writing, "I am nervous, I am scared of him," that, we always talk about what the jury takes home with them and what keeps them awake at night. And that's going to keep them awake at night. And that is, as a defense attorney, that's the hardest thing to overcome. And the drug usage, the constant talk about the drug usage. I think the defense attorney has to steer this and say, look, this is not a trial about drugs. You're not going to like my client. In fact, you're not going to like his family, quite honestly. But this is about murder and not drugs. I do feel the prosecution here is driving a bus. I have a lot of confidence in what the prosecution's doing, and it's just incredibly emotional. And so far, just this very strong case for the prosecution, minus a motive.
Yeah, it's been very methodical. They've done a fantastic job. It's very organized. I think the way they're telling this story, which is essentially what a trial is, has been very clear. But I agree with you. When you get to the emotional part and you think of this little girl, this young girl in that environment, you've heard about a lot of the drugs, as you mentioned, and then that text, which I agree with you, I think is one of the strongest pieces of evidence in this case. Her essentially speaking from the grave with her text to her boyfriend, talking about being afraid of this guy. But then you have all these inconsistencies in his statement as well. As a defense attorney, how do you confront that?
This is a hard one because the inconsistencies along with her statement, along with this massive drug use. Look, we can always explain it away as he was high or not in his right mind when he was answering these questions, and he was very nervous in being in the presence of officers. I've used that argument many times before successfully because truly, when we are confronted with a badge or a gun, we will tend to say things that really don't make any sense. I mean, even for me, I'm a trained attorney, and even being pulled over, even for an innocuous, traffic incident, I see myself getting flustered, and I'm an attorney who deals with officers every day. So you can explain it away in that capacity, but taken in full, as a prosecutor, I would say the truth does not manipulate, the truth does not lie. So why would he have inconsistent statements if he had nothing to hide?
Yeah, those inconsistent statements, they always come back to bite defendants who think they can talk their way out of things. But I agree with you. I think there's a part of me that knows that folks who are on drugs or do drugs, they have a tendency to be paranoid. They have a tendency to talk too much. They have a tendency to be inconsistent in what they say. But also, they have a tendency to do irrational things. And when you think about it in that sense, that's going to give this jury another thing to hang their hat on.
And Michael, think about it too. As a juror, this girl was living with a drug addict who was lying and she was scared. Usually with step parents, children will say, "Oh, I hate living with this guy, drug using idiot, yada, yada." They'll complain about the demeanor of the step parent and their rules. But this is so far beyond that it's really gut-wrenching to hear this testimony, even as a defense attorney. So the defense is really going to really have to rise above all of this prejudicial evidence that's coming out and counter it, maybe saying, look, this whole family were drug users. Anyone could have done it. Maybe that's where the shift has to go.
Yeah, perhaps, and you make a great point. That text, a lot of times when you have a stepdaughter or someone who's living in the home who's not necessarily the father of the child, they may say, "Oh, my stepfather's creepy," or "I hate when he comes around." Yeah. But this was something very, very different. All right, Silva, stand by. We're going to take a break right now. Still to come, a hearing for Robert Aaron Long, the man who pled guilty to fatally shooting 4 people at a massage business outside of Atlanta, took place today. We'll get you caught up on that. We'll also take a look at what we can expect in the Britney Spears conservatorship hearing scheduled for tomorrow out in L.A. And in our trial in West Virginia, the defendant brings up the names of a couple of other possible suspects in the killing of Riley Crossman. I'll tell you about that coming up as well, so keep it right here on Court TV. After pleading guilty to fatally shooting 4 people at a massage spa outside of Atlanta, Georgia, Robert Aaron Long pleaded not guilty to shooting 4 other people on the same day at 2 other spas inside the city. Long appeared briefly Tuesday in Fulton County Superior Court, where he waived arraignment and entered a not guilty plea on charges including murder, aggravated assault, and domestic terrorism. District Attorney Fannie Willis is seeking the death penalty as well as sentencing enhancements under Georgia's new hate crimes law. Let's listen to some of today's hearing.
We are here on the record in the matter of the state of Georgia versus Robert Aaron Long in indictment 21 SC 177839, who's charged with 4 counts of murder, 4 counts of felony murder, 5 counts of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, 1 count of domestic terrorism, and 5 counts of possession of a firearm to the commission of a felony. Would the defense like to waive arraignment, plead not guilty, and have at least 10 days to file motions?
Yes, Your Honor, we are going to request additional time to file motions in this case.
Okay, all right. Given the unified appeal procedure, I was going to suggest that maybe we have a status sometime in November. Would that work for you?
That will, Your Honor.
All right, I'm going to find a date right now, so if all counsel could kind of take a look at their calendars.
Now, in July, Long pled guilty to Cherokee County charges, including 4 counts of murder. He received 4 sentences of life in prison without parole, plus an additional 35 years. Let's quickly bring in criminal defense attorney Silva Megerditchian. And Silva, I want to get your thoughts on this because it's interesting for our viewers to understand that in one instance, they were going to seek the death penalty in Cherokee County, took it off the table to get that plea. Now he's in Fulton County. They are not taking it off the table there. So it's not uncommon to make that kind of deal as the one we saw in Cherokee, but interesting that Fulton County takes a different approach.
Yeah, and they have every right to. I mean, the death penalty, Michael, changes everything because everything is analyzed more. You don't see defendants who will plead or take a plea deal when there's a death penalty issue like this. So this is extremely natural. It is normal what's going on. And yet the county has every right to ask for the death penalty in this case, just as jurisdictions have the right to ask for life in prison. So we do see this frequently.
One of the interesting things about this as well is that in Cherokee County, She said her investigation didn't show that one of the enhancements needed for the death penalty, that this was under the hate crime. She didn't see it as a hate crime. Remember, at that time, a lot of anti-Asian sentiment was front and center in the media. They thought this was an anti-Asian situation. Turned out that what they found in Cherokee County, it was more of he had a sex addiction and was angry at sex workers. But they found in Fulton County that perhaps there was some gender discrimination involved. I want to get your thoughts on that.
You know, Michael, you bring up such a great point because we see this also with filing. Sometimes you'll have a head district attorney who won't even file a case against a defendant. A new district attorney will come and decide to file, and the charges you see are so different and more inclusive. It's the same thing here. What appears one way to one jurisdiction oftentimes does appear to be another way. And it's like you said, there was a lot of media attention on this case, and a lot of pundits were very curious as to why a hate crime was not alleged. In fact, there was discussion saying, well, Asian violence wasn't taken seriously enough. So this also could very well be a response to the political pressure and just public pressure and the need for justice and to recognize something more needs to be done. Again, prosecutors are people, so they're going to want to allege issues that they think the public wants to see.
Yeah, folks can't forget, they are elected officials as well, Silva,
Yes.
so they have to respond to public pressures oftentimes. All right, let's
Yes.
turn our attention now to California, where pop star Britney Spears is just a day away from a hearing that will decide the future of her court-ordered conservatorship. Judge Brenda Penny is expected to make a ruling on the conservatorship that gave Britney's father, Jamie Spears, control over her estate and finances for the last 13 years. If Judge Penny rules in Britney's favor, the pop star could regain control over her finances as soon as this week. And I want to get your thoughts on this, Silva. This has come and gone in the media, and you know, it's been a big deal. Free Britney. We all know that. But the question is, should she have to subject herself to some sort of mental testing? Because that was the reason she got into the conservatorship. She doesn't want to go through any sort of mental testing as far as her capacity. What do you think is going to happen here?
Well, I think, Michael, there is an issue as to waiving it. If both sides agree that a mental evaluation does not need to happen for the judge to make a determination, there doesn't have to be a mental evaluation. And what bothers me about this case, and it's always bothered me, is, again, she has the right to her privacy when it comes to whatever's going on with her mentally, and we really don't know. I was reading a lot of the readers' comments on Court TV, assuming or hypothesizing what could be wrong with her. I think, again, this is one of those where media attention and her fans and the universal love we have for her really kind of will dictate a lot of what's going on. Her father realizes enough is enough. And I think there is an argument here that whether or not this conservatorship was necessary for her, I don't think anyone would say it didn't go too far. I mean, what we're finding out about taping her in her room and the level of lack of privacy, it's so jarring as a populace to hear this about someone who is competent enough to command a stadium of 100,000 people. So I don't believe the mental evaluation will be necessary. I do believe she's going to regain her life back. But I also want to say we have to keep our eyes open and our ears to what's going on, because this case is certainly not over. And if Britney Spears acts up in some capacity where it seems like she cannot take care of herself or her finances, something's going to happen. So time will tell, but I do think it's going to go in her favor.
Yeah, I agree with you, because one of the reasons it may go in her favor is because the father is subjected to all of these allegations. One of them that you mentioned, that he was using a security company to really invade her privacy in ways that he had no business invading, even under the rules of the conservatorship. Initially, he was challenging leaving it. Now he says if that's what she wants, we'll let her go, probably hoping that he can get off not having to deal with some of the illegality of what he's done. So he'll probably agree, which means that in the end, what we want here, Silva, at the end of the day, is what's best for Britney. And I'm not sure, honestly, I'm not sure that not having someone watch out for her is what's best for her.
Yeah, I think in this case, she, by getting her own attorney, was absolutely a very smart decision because he really took charge of what needed to be done and he did his job. But you're absolutely right, Michael. I think if there's one thing that unites every single person in this country, it's the care and concern for those who, are beloved. I mean, we love and we put these stars on a pedestal, not knowing the demons that live inside of them. I think, again, as we go on in the months ahead and we see what she posts on Instagram, what comes out in the media, I think the public is really going to determine whether she's safe to kind of rule her empire. But I'll just tell you, just from personal dealings with my clients, you know, again, I've had a lot of mentally ill clients who are incredibly intelligent, that are perfectly capable of handling their finances and make decisions that don't harm themselves or others. I think after 13 years, this young woman deserves the right to see if she can take care of herself. There are some things that concern me, though. Her housekeeper had to take her dog away because of negligent behavior to the dog. And that just happened, I think it was about a month and a half ago. There are issues. I'm just hoping, again, once she gets control of her life, she will flourish and not go back to this restrictive conservatorship.
Absolutely. We'll change that hashtag from Free Britney to hashtag What's Best for Britney. All right, Silva, stand by. We're going to take a break right now. In West Virginia, the defendant's mother took the stand, and during her testimony, it was revealed that the defendant tells her about some intriguing other possible suspects in Riley Crossman's death. Are they for real or just a red herring? We'll take a listen to some of that testimony when we come back, so keep it right here on Court TV. Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Michael Ayala. The teen-killed murder trial will resume tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Eastern. Now, the defendant's mother took the stand earlier today, and during her testimony, it was revealed that she had a conversation with her son about Riley, the victim in this case, sending provocative photos to other adult men. Interesting stuff. Take a listen.
Did your son tell you that Riley Crossman was sending out provocative photos to adult men?
Yes, he did.
And tell me about the conversation.
I can't say myself that she was.
I didn't ask you that. Listen to my question. What did your son tell you about Riley Crossman sending out provocative photos to adult men?
He said two boys came into the jail, and he said these boys told him, gave him his names and everything, and said they were receiving provocative pictures from her.
Do you remember the names of the two boys? Or the two men that would have been in jail?
I couldn't tell you the two names of the boys.
Then the jury heard a phone conversation between Andrew McCauley and his mother talking about the alleged photos Riley sent, and they did mention one man in particular, Dominic Mongol. Listen.
Got locked up in here. His name's Dominic Mongol. He knows Riley. He said that she got locked up in it, but I don't believe it's true. He said that she got locked up a month ago, but I was like, I don't think so. I think he heard a bunch of shit about the mom had something to do with it, and when all this, I got to get hold of my lawyer. I just got it 2 days ago. He knows Riley, right? He's like best friends with her. Yeah. His cousin's best friend with Riley. Well, if this kid told me that Riley was sending him, I got his name and this other kid's name, I'm getting my order. This Riley was sending him and this other kid pictures of her in brown panties. And these kids are adults. He's 19, he's locked up in jail. What? She was sending him and this other kid pictures of her in brown panties. And who else was she sending pictures of brown panties to? You know what I mean? Yeah. She could have been to anybody. Exactly. She might come in. She could have been meeting up with somebody or something, and she could have been on. Obviously, she talked to older guys, or she wouldn't. These guys would. She wouldn't have sent these guys pictures. Exactly. You got them boys' names and all that. I got the names and everything, and then he said that he wanted to talk to the lawyer and say everything about it and everything. I ain't trying to get them in trouble, but
Yeah.
this is my life online, you know what I mean?
Damn right. Then how many other ones has she been sending and don't know, and she might come in there and did that?
That's another thing. He said that her Snapchat, she's actually on Snapchat. He said that there's a thing called My Eyes, a folder called My Eyes Only, that you can't see unless you have her passcode. I don't know if her boyfriend or her mom has her passcode, her Snapchat, but they should have the pictures and everything on it.
Oh, they can get them.
Yeah, that's what he said. They should be able to get them.
All right, so the name that comes up is Dominic Mongol, and I want to play now quickly as the prosecutor asks the mother if she knows who that is.
Do you remember that conversation now, ma'am? Do you remember the conversation?
Yes.
Do you remember the two individuals that Andy named, or did he tell you the names of the individuals that knew about this information?
He did say them names. But I couldn't recall them names. But they're the names that he mentioned to me.
I heard one name, Dominic Mongol.
Dominic, but I didn't hear the other name.
Do you know who Dominic Mongol is?
No. Never heard of him, never seen him. I don't have no clue who he is.
All right, let's bring in criminal defense attorney Silva Megerditchian. And Silva, an interesting little sidebar there, and I call it a sidebar, not an official sidebar, but this idea that perhaps the victim in this case had been texting inappropriate pictures to some men. I don't think there was an investigation into it, but certainly it's something that the defense might, can play with a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an opening for reasonable doubt for sure. I always believe, too, that, again, this is coming from the person who's accused of killing her. So he has a vested interest in pointing the fingers at others. I hope he knows that everything he's saying is being recorded, so he can also manipulate that, because he knows if he's being recorded and he can point to someone else, maybe they, again, it brings up reasonable doubt. I'm always careful, though, with defenses like this, because it tries to make the victim this salacious, again, it's disseminating child pornography, even though it's even her photos. She's under the age of 18. She's sending them to grown men. It's vilifying the victim a little bit and pointing the finger at others. Michael, I'm not sure if investigators actually did look into this, because one of the first places that an investigation will go is the victim's cell phone and computer and the apps that she uses in order to track who she was communicating with. I'd be very surprised if they did not investigate this. But again, time will tell. We'll see what the defense comes up with.
Yeah, you make an interesting point, one that I didn't even think of, the fact that he was having this conversation with his mom under circumstances where he probably was aware that he was being recorded. So he was probably throwing it out there, not just for his mother's ears, but for anybody who was listening, obviously. And you're right, he may have been doing that. But, the entire specter of all of their conversations was a little bit tainted for me. Number one, you have, folks who are involved in drugs on both sides. The mom admitted to it. There were a couple of times where it was clear she was doing her best to protect her son, but she was reminded by the prosecutor of things she had said or had seen, which she conveniently on the stand said that she was forgetting. Again, I don't know if she was lying about that, but again, the sense was that she was there protecting her son. What does a jury do with this type of testimony? A mom comes in, has to testify. You have a son talking to her, saying things under circumstances, like you said, that, he could have ulterior motives. What is the whole thing seems tainted. What does a jury do with that?
Michael, you're absolutely right. And your thoughts are what the jury's thoughts is. When I was watching this, I was cringing when the prosecutor asked her if she was doing drugs. She denied it. And then he asked her, yeah, but what about prescription drugs? And she admitted it. And then the cocaine issues. I mean, she's not an expert. She's not a narcotics detective. But man, was she confident in her testimony about a gram of coke. Her credibility, I believe, is shot. I mean, the jury understands that a mother, whether drug user or sober, instinctually will protect her children. this is a tragic story of a 15-year-old who's murdered. And it's also a story of a mom who could potentially lose her son for the rest of his life in prison. So she's in no place to be envied. And anyone who's on the stand whose child is accused of a crime, their first instinct is to do whatever they can to protect. And I think then the second instinct is to tell the truth. And I think jurors understand that.
It's interesting that there was a little scene where she's walking out of the courtroom. She tells her son that she loves her. I mean, I just love that little scene. I mean, mom, she's doing everything she can. She loves her son. She certainly doesn't want this to be true. But at the end of the day, as we've talked about, there's a lot of evidence against him. As a defense attorney, how do you approach this case? Now, this is a first-degree murder case, right? It requires premeditation, malice. I think that's your strongest area as a defense attorney. Not going for the complete win, but maybe going for some lesser includeds, because, again, it is a very strong case, but a case for first-degree murder, I think, is where the case is weakest.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, again, the motive and the intention is lacking here. Again, though, the text message is something. Why was this girl scared of him? Now, the defense attorney can always say, every step-parent is demonized. Children, it's almost instinctual that children do not like their step-parents. The defense attorney can use this and say, look, he wasn't a likable guy. In fact, there's not one of you on that jury that's going to like this man. But for him to murder his stepdaughter for literally no reason defies logic, and then attack reasonable doubt. And you're right. Can there be a lesser included? In a case like this, I'm not sure if there is adequate reasonable doubt to try to say that it's anything that could possibly point to whether intentional or unintentional murder is a big risk. It's a very hard decision for the defense attorney. And again, there's so much evidence here that if the defense attorney can point to a reasonable doubt that is in fact reasonable and run with it, then he can grab one juror who can actually hang this jury. So I'm very curious when the case in chief starts, what's going to happen. But let's not forget, I think the prosecutor is planning to call over 40 witnesses. So it's going to be a long call by the time the defense gets their chance to open up their case in chief.
Yeah, no question. It is a long haul. But at this moment, I'm exactly in your camp, Silva, in that I look at this case, there's a ton of evidence. It's almost difficult to say, he didn't do it, but there's a little sliver of doubt. The question is it a reasonable doubt? And we'll have to see after those 40 witnesses. All right, Silva, stand by. We're going to take a break now. Britney Spears has a conservatorship hearing tomorrow, as we told you earlier, and that is the focus of our Court TV Talk Back tonight. We hear from you and all of what you have to say about Britney's mental health status right after this break. So you don't want to miss it. Keep it right here on Court TV.
In all the years that I've covered trials across this country, this one is the most divisive.
Kyle Rittenhouse awaiting trial.
Chaos erupted in Kenosha overnight.
Who shot 3 people in Kenosha, Wisconsin during the riots. 2 of them died.
Rittenhouse has pled not guilty to murder and all charges stemming from the incident.
Kyle Rittenhouse thinks he's above the law. He was an active shooter and he tried to flee.
He's the one who went down armed with an assault rifle, armed with a rifle that was almost half the size of his body, which is crazy.
The issue really will become, was he justified in using lethal force in defending himself?
Who struck my client first? Who attacked my client first?
I've never seen anything like it before here on Court TV, ever.
Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Michael Ayala. It is time for today's Talkback segment. Each day, we post a question on Court TV's social media pages. We gather your comments and questions and then respond right here on the show. Now, tomorrow, pop star Britney Spears will be in court to address her conservatorship. So today, we asked you if you think she should undergo a mental health evaluation in order to get out of it. Let's bring in and welcome back criminal defense attorney Silva Megerditchian and go to our first comment of the day, which comes from Pam Mackert-Wilson. Now, Pam writes, no, but I'm sure they will require it since her mental health is why she got into the conservatorship. to start with. And actually, you mentioned it earlier, Silva, it's likely in this instance, now normally she would, but in this instance, she probably won't have to go through it.
Yeah, I mean, it all depends. The parties could stipulate, and the judge is a wild card here. I mean, the judge could say, "I want the eval." So it really depends. It's hard to see where it would go. I just have a feeling that there won't be an eval before this is let go.
Yeah, I have to agree. Let's go to our next comment, and that comes from Barbara Ferrin. Barbara says, I've listened to her talk and her writings, and she seems pretty together. And that brings me to something you mentioned earlier, Silva. You talked about having some clients who have mental health issues, but are fine handling their money and doing various things. And that's interesting because the judge is going to look at capacity over in California law. Capacity is partly can articulate the risks and benefits on making decisions about medical care, wills, marriage contracts, etc. These are all the things that, of course, are going to be coming up in her life. She's dating someone. She's interested in getting married. Of course, she has lots of money to deal with. She still earns quite a bit of money. So when you look at it from that standpoint, you don't have to be completely, as you said, free of mental issues. You have to, A, be getting help for it, and B, be able to handle those life decisions.
Absolutely. And we're blessed here in California. I mean, as an attorney, I'm proud of my state and the way that they deal with mental health issues. We treat mental health as a disease, a condition that can be treated and should be treated. And I think that's the important aspect here, too. If something is wrong with her, will she voluntarily agree also to take care of it, to do what is necessary through therapeutic intervention or any kind of pill or medication that might be able to help her? So it'll be very interesting to see, again, the weeks to come, what happens with her.
You know, that's an excellent point because, you know, we all want to be participating in our own mental well-being, our own physical well-being. And while the two sides may agree, Silva, not to require some sort of mental evaluation, I wonder if that might be the best thing anyway, just to make sure that she's okay.
You know, Michael, it's funny. For clients that even have an iota of mental health issues, we have to, as attorneys, explore it by getting an independent doctor to evaluate our clients to make sure that they're competent in the state of California. And if we don't, it could be ineffective assistance of counsel. So in her case, when it comes to her well-being, a lot has been done that we are not privy to. And the only thing we can do as the public is do what we can, which is see what she posts, see what she says, and see how she acts in public.
You know, you make an interesting point. I wonder if it's incumbent upon her attorney to make sure that she's okay. Certainly, he wants to do what she requires, what she's asking him to do as a hired attorney, but he also has a responsibility, as you said, to make sure that she's okay. Let's get quickly to our next comment, and that's from Justin, and he asks, what does it matter if she's mentally fit? It's her finances, and she has a team of people to help her. She seems more stable than half the musicians in the pop scene. That may be true, but I do think it's important because quickly, you can easily and very quickly be separated from all the money that you have if you are not taking care of your situation and making the right choices.
And we see that. We see that when someone comes into their life and makes these guys bankrupt and they lose everything. So in her case, though, again, Michael, I think there are a lot of signs that she is stable and she is able to handle herself. But again, as I say, it's like a broken record. Only time will tell. And I think all of us can agree we want her to be Britney. We want her to be fabulous and take control and be an independent model for our children. That's what we want at the end of the day. No one wants this girl to suffer.
You know, there are explosive allegations that Jamie Spears was, as you said, violating her privacy. And in fact, there could be some illegality connected with it. Do you think eventually he's going to be someone who ends up facing charges?
You know, it's possible. We don't have enough information. Was there a reason that maybe he was scared to death of what could be? That's going to be the issue. We just haven't heard his side yet, so I don't want to jump to a conclusion. Again, it's so offensive to the thought process that her bedroom would be recorded like that. But again, do we know? Maybe he got word that she was hurting herself. We just don't know. There could be a reasonable explanation to such a draconian way of handling her.
All right, and we certainly will keep our eyes on it. I want to thank you so much, Silva. As always, a true pleasure to have you on your show with all your wonderful insights. Hopefully you'll come back and join us again soon. I'm Michael Ayala. It's been a pleasure being with you as well. Coming up next on Closing Arguments, Vinnie Politan takes a look at the biggest moments in the Gabby Petito case and much, much more. He'll get you all caught up on West Virginia as well. So keep it right here on Court TV, your front row seat to justice.